A.J. Riedel. A.J. Riedel, Adulthood, the Sequel. Adulthood, the Sequel, A.J. Riedel. Welcome.
Scene 1, September 14th, 2018. Establishing setting. The lawn of the yacht club on the shores of beautiful Lake Winnebago in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. I am resplendent in my flesh-colored floor-length mother-in-law gown with my hair in a glamorous updo. My husband and I are walking our only son across the lawn to the wedding arbor where the pastor is waiting. Scene 2, December 15th, 2018. The location, my home office. I'm on the phone with my only ongoing client who has just blindsided me with the news that they are taking the project I've been working on with them for 4 years. They're taking that project in-house. Essentially, the 30-year consulting practice that I founded in 1990, it's pretty much closed down. Scene 3, April 16th, 2019. Location, Zinburger Restaurant in the Fashion Biltmore Park. I am celebrating my 65th birthday with my husband and my son and his new wife. Over the space of 9 months, my active parenting has come to an end. My career has ended, and I've reached retirement age. The end. Fade to black. Roll credits. Wait, that's the end of Adulthood, the movie? What am I supposed to do now? Move to a retirement community? Wait impatiently for my son to give me a grandchild? Decline into decrepitude? Well, if I bought into the old paradigm of aging, that aging is an arc, you're born, you peak at midlife, and you decline into old age. If I bought that, then that might be true, that would be my fate. But I don't buy that. The old paradigm of aging is no longer true. We are living an average of 34 years longer than our great-grandparents did. So a stage of adulthood has been inserted between child rearing and career building before old age. That stage could be 30, 35 years. Now, my second adulthood happened to coincide with my 65th birthday. For you, it may be sooner or later, depending on when you start your family, where you are in your career, and when you plan to retire. Mary Catherine Bateson, author of Composing a Further Life, calls this second stage of adulthood, she actually calls it adulthood 2. She says that this is a time of life when we reflect that we've accomplished much of what we want to do, but where it's not too late to do something more and different. She also suggests that we ask ourselves 3 questions. 1, what do I want to continue to do? 2, what do I want to do more of? And 3, what do I want to leave behind? I've been asking myself those questions since my birthday. I've been thinking about them a lot. And here's what I've come up with so far. One, what do I want to continue to do? Well, I want to continue to work. My role model is Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Associate Supreme Court Justice. She's still working at 86 and has absolutely no plans to retire. I also want to continue to walk, hike, do yoga, and Pilates. My role model for this is a woman in my Toastmasters Club Risk Takers named Ann Lorimer. Ann Lorimer is, at 85, set the record for the oldest woman to climb Mount Kilimanjaro, and she's doing it again this summer at 88. What do I want to do more of? I want to write. I have always kept a journal. I wrote a ton of research reports and an occasional blog when I had a consulting practice. But I long to write my stories, my life, my experience. I don't know if anybody else will read it, but I long to write. I also want to spend more time with my son and his new wife, partly because they're my hiking buddies, but partly because I don't want to be a long-distance grandma, which is why another part of that is that I want to move to Southern California, where they live. What do I want to leave behind? I want to leave behind the things that don't serve me well, that no longer serve me. The really strident, loud inner critic in my head that constantly berates and criticizes me. The chronic, persistent depression that I've suffered from for over 2 decades that weighs me down. And finally, what do I want to well, that is leave behind. The more important leave behind is I want to leave behind a legacy, a me-shaped stamp that will remain when I depart this earth. I challenge you, in fact, I exhort you to ask yourselves these questions, whether you're in your first stage of adulthood, whether you, like me, you are entering adulthood too, or whether you are already deep into this stage of life. I challenge you to ask yourself these questions. Because if you don't ask yourself these questions, you run the risk of aimlessly drifting through old age, aimlessly drifting through those decades before old age, rather than taking control and living your adulthood, the sequel, the way you want to live it. And I will leave you with these words of advice from the great 20th century philosopher, Dr. Seuss. You have brains in your head. You have feet in your shoes. You can steer yourself the direction you choose. You are on your own. You know what you know. And you can take yourself the direction you want to go. Take yourself the direction you want to go in your adulthood, the sequel.
Thank you. A.J. Riedel. Thank you. Contestant number 1, Jennifer Eason. Jennifer Eason, contestant number 1.
May 17th, 2019, about 8:15 p.m., I heard one of the most well-prepared speeches I have ever heard. AJ, let me be the first to tell you, you are incredible. You make this a very difficult job to fulfill. Your use of language, resplendent, it makes me want to pick up a thesaurus at least once every night. And then there were the pregnant pauses where everyone typically adds those filler words. You handled it with grace. Your use of body language, the hair and the steering, it was so perfect. It drew me in. It made me feel like You knew exactly what I needed to hear. I noticed at the beginning, you started over here and you set first. And then you came over here, set 2. And you came over here for set 3. But from sitting in that seat, I never saw you get all the way back over here. And for me, I was waiting. As soon as you got to the middle, I said, yes, she's almost there. I'm going to get to hear her, even I'm going to get to see it. But you never made it over here. And that is a long stage. In case anyone has not been up here, this is long. So it was not an easy thing to take on. But you did do a great job. It's just something I would think about the next time I'm up here and having to use such a wide stage, is making sure that, yes, we want to focus here and look around, but also be around. I want to be able to feel you in my presence. I am so honored to have heard all of those great things. It makes me so excited for my second adulthood, because after that, the kids aren't at home, right? Right? You did great. I really hope that you can continue to come up here and share those experiences, because you never know who is waiting to hear those little things, those little bits of wisdom that you think are just personal to you. So I want you to continue to use that body language, engage the audience with it. Remember to use all of the stage, because we want to feel you. You are important to all of us. Continue to give all of that wisdom. But most importantly, thank you, AJ. Thank you for leaving the AJ stamp on my life.
Contestant number 2, Jovita Robertson. Jovita Robertson, contestant number 2.
Thank you, Mr. Contest Chair, fellow Toastmasters, and most especially AJ. This was a very great speech. I loved this topic. Even though I am not 65 years young, as AJ is, these are questions I think about all the time. What am I going to do? What do I want to leave behind? So very great topic for the evening. I have 3 things that I loved especially about the presentation, and then 2 things that I recommend to make some changes to make this even better going forward. First, definite command presence for this audience. And this is a rowdy bunch tonight. Everybody has a lot of energy, and you were able to hold the attention of the room throughout. That confidence that you displayed was very inspiring. Next, I like that you used the stage very well. You set the tone for your 3 different scenes so that we understood that you were making different points, and you were able to engage the entire audience throughout. Third, I loved the use of humor throughout the speech. This is a topic that definitely could have gone in a different direction, maybe a little depressing if you don't know where you're going with your life, but the use of levity really worked well here. 2 things I'd like to see the next time you give the presentation. Having the microphone is a little bit distracting. Having to hold it at a certain level. For me, sitting in the back of the room, there were times when the microphone dropped and it was a little bit harder to hear what was being said. I think the microphone also made it more difficult to use your gestures, because you're holding it here, so your common thing is to hold your other hand like this, as opposed to being able to do wide gestures and really get into some of your actions. Overall, like I said, this was a fantastic speech. We had great energy throughout, humor that made it interesting for all of us. Next time, try to use maybe a clip-on microphone or something else that they have available so that you can use your gestures a little bit more widely and make sure everyone can hear you very well. Great job.
Contestant number 3, Gloria Diaz. Gloria Diaz, contestant number 3.
Mr. Contest Chair, esteemed judges, ladies and gentlemen, and of course, AJ. Thank you for the opportunity to share with you my impressions of your speech this evening. First, I'd like to tell you the things that, to me, you did so very well. I absolutely loved the way you used the stage and the way you set the stage by beginning over here with scene number 1 and progressing along. I also enjoyed your use of language, your word choices, and your word pictures. You really painted the various scenes for us, and that always augments a speech. You had a little bit of an impediment with the microphone, but I still think you managed very nicely in terms of still using your free hand and occasionally changing hands to try again to engage us. I heard reactions from the audience at various points, and so that of course indicates that you engaged your audience, so that was very well done. The overall structure of your speech was good. I liked it. And I have the sense, AJ, that you could be a masterful storyteller. And this particular speech has a good message, and I think it could really be a fabulous speech with just a few enhancements. For example, despite the fact that the story and the speech was so well organized, to me, I needed a little bit of an introduction, or pardon the pun, a little more of stage setting. You started in with scene 1, and I was with you, son's wedding, great. And then you moved into scene 2, and there was no connection to what scene 1 was about. By the time you got to scene number 3, I was starting to disengage just a little bit because I was wondering, how is she going to tie this together, and what's the real message here? So perhaps just a short one-sentence introduction would have avoided that for me. Additionally, the title was The Second Act, and yet you were sharing scenes and no mention of acts, and so that was just a little bit disjointed. So just a little tweak that would just make it a little bit stronger. The other thing that I think would really help is a little more vocal variety in terms of helping us feel the emotions you felt at each one of those scenes. The first one was obviously a very happy one. The second one, not so much. But overall, I think it was, like I said, a really good message, well organized, with a little bit of tweaking. I think it would be fabulous, and I can't believe you're 65. Thank you.
Contestant number 4, Mike Kaml. Mike Kaml, contestant number 4.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Contest Chair, fellow Toastmasters, and especially AJ. Scene 1. You step up on this stage and immediately grab our attention. You grab our attention by using a very interesting way of setting up your speech. You gave us a screenplay of your life. This is your life. Then you went on to talk about what comes after. Adulthood, the sequel. Now it's personal. You did a great job of using the stage. You had the 3 different areas that you used when you were talking about the 3 different scenes. One thing that I would like to see you do is add a prop. Get a chair, put it about right here. When you're talking about, what's my old age going to be? Am I going to have to go to a home? Go ahead, come back here, sit down. and wait for my children to give me a grandson. That was something that would really help to bring that speech along. You then ask us the three questions. What do I want to continue to do? What do I want to do more of? And what do I want to stop doing? And you answered those questions for yourself. You did a great job of bringing us along through this entire speech and giving us a lot of different things to think about. Then you went ahead and did your call to action. What is it you want us to do? You used one of my favorite authors, Dr. Seuss, to talk about the types of things that we can do. You made the speech personal for each one of us, but it was your speech talking about yourself. It's a great job to be able to do that. One of the other things that I would like to see you do is to pause a little bit more. You gave us some really wonderful word pictures, some things we wanted to absorb, to listen to in our mind, to see. And then you went right on. And we had to let those go. So a couple of things you can do to help out this: add a prop, put that chair center stage, upstage, and use it to emphasize what you're talking about. Slow down a little bit. Give us the opportunity to absorb all the wonderful things that you're telling us. And I can tell you, the sequel is going to be even better than Hood. Mr. Conte.
Contestant number 5, Bob Myers. Bob Myers, contestant number 5.
Thank you, Mr. Contest Chair, fellow Toastmasters, welcome guests, and our beloved AJ. I have a confession to make. It's past my bedtime. But had I gone home and gone to sleep, getting my beauty sleep, which you can see I need, I wouldn't have heard your message. There are 3 things, ladies and gentlemen, that I want to talk about that I totally liked about this speech. Number 1, you were unpredictable. I didn't know what you were going to do. That's a good thing, because I was leaning forward and people were leaning forward. You came up here, scene 1. I thought, what? Scene 1? Scene 2? Scene 3? Oh my goodness, what is she doing? And then I got it. Number 2, you were authentic, because every person in here, as far as I could see, was thinking about their life and where they were on your little continuum. I was thinking, well, where am I? And then 3rd, you had an emotional bond with the audience, because it got very serious. I was thinking, holy smokes, am I drifting aimlessly off into old age and I'm not doing anything about it? It is so good. The message was so compelling, so great. Now, I have some things for your consideration, of course. Number 1, I want you to come up here quickly with a smile on your face and own this stage. You are in charge. We're here to listen. You have a message to give, and I want to see you eager to give it to us so that we get it. Number 2, and it goes voice, face, gestures. I know that's 3. I can count. Gestures. I think they made a video of this presentation. Watch the video without the voice and see if your gestures are in tune with what's going on. I know you're holding a mic, but you can make some big gestures to emphasize your points, and then use the voice, your voice, to accompany this. Your voice was somewhat in the same range. You could have said, my son got married. Oh yes, you're happy, and you're using your whole body and your arms and your gestures to support this. And then last, when you said some things that were very emotional, you could have lowered your voice to have some vocal variety and grimaced when we're getting to the bad parts and have a big smile and a happy face for the good parts. After all that, what you did was you gave us something to take away, questions to ask. In summary, you were unpredictable and authentic. You created a bond with us. I would work on owning this stage and work on those gestures and the voice and the facial expressions. Thank you so much for your message. Mr. Contest Chair.
Contestant number 6, Enneking. Enneking. Contestant number 6.
Mr. Contest Chair, fellow Toastmasters and honored guests, and especially to AJ, thank you so much for the path and the journey that you just took us down. A journey that brought feelings of excitement, maybe some fear for some of us, because we're all on that same path. Some of us are just in different spots. AJ told us a great story today. And she did it in a few ways. One of those was with her language and how descriptive it was. When she talked about being blindsided, I felt it. When she talked about the excitement at her 65th birthday, I felt it. And the language brought me in and made me feel like I was part of her story. And that's what a speaker's job is to do, is to bring us into that story with them. The other thing that AJ did was with some really good movements. When she talked about 3 questions, she counted them off. 1, 2, 3. Another part in her story, she had that foot going, made me feel like that rabbit. Right? It was awesome. There were some areas, though, that I believe that our speaker could have done to make the story even better and brought me further into that world. One of those is in the tone of voice. At times, our speaker's tone was flat and consistent. And when we talk about being on that phone call and being blindsided, and there's a little bit of fear and there's upset, I could feel it more if our tone drops. Or when we're talking about excitement, when we get a little bit louder, a little bit higher pitched, I come a little bit deeper into that. Another thing that could have really made it great is pace. As a speaker, we have to know where we're at in our story and be able to keep on time to make sure we stay within those time constraints of our speech. If we go too fast, our audience can't keep up. In our speaker's case today, maybe a little too slow, and we didn't finish on time. So in conclusion, a really great story, very descriptive, and made me feel like I'm ready to go down that path myself. Some areas to work on is work on that vocal change and also work on that pace. And the last thing that was great about that was that call to action to make me think about what I'm going to do as I continue down that path. Thank you, Mr. Contest Chair.
Contestant number 7, Otstot. Otstot. Contestant number 7.
Well, thank you, Mr. Contest Chair. Friends, AJ gave us an outstanding speech tonight. And AJ, my goal tonight is I want to offer you some ideas on the things that you did well, the gifts that you bring, but also to offer you something that you can take away tonight and immediately become a better speaker. So let me evaluate you as a speaker through the lens of the speech that you gave tonight. Now, the first thing I look for when I'm going to evaluate a speech is what I call the lighthouse. It's that main central idea, something that has to be crystal clear for your audience to track and follow. And the title of your speech was Adulthood Revisited. And I'd actually like to visit adulthood, but that's a whole different issue. Later in your speech, you talked about leaving things behind. I think Adulthood Revisited, the opportunity to leave things behind, would have been a more compelling idea for the audience. Because what you did is you talked about leaving negative things behind, your depression, but you also talked about leaving a legacy. And that really tickled me. I love that. 7 minutes is a long time to hold the audience's attention. And we do that through the use of contrast, the way that we use the stage in our movements, the structure of our speech, and also with our voice. You have a wonderful speaking voice, and I love to listen to you. You're confident, you have a great sense of humor, but I think the opportunity for you would have been to use more vocal variety with your speech, which would have held our interest even more. Use some great advanced staging techniques, which I really appreciate, especially in this district. The fact that you used a chronological approach to the stage, where you used an earlier story here, moved later into your life here, and then moved on to your later years here, your audience sees time left to right, so that was excellent. What I would challenge you to do is also to think about your characters. Give your characters a place on the stage, as if they were a hologram. Anchor them there so you can walk up and engage them. Then you can have dialogue. Dialogue over narration really helps your story come to life. And the other thing is, in terms of story, there's some opportunities that we have with story. Stories are sticky, and we love stories. They're a great way to make your points. We're hardwired for stories. I think for you, with your stories, there's the opportunity, as opposed to a theatrical presentation, where you can actually step out of your story and engage the audience directly. So, for example, when you're talking about your 65th birthday party, you can say, well, we had a birthday party for me, I turned 65, I couldn't believe it. Or you could say, we had a birthday party for me and I turned 65. Yeah, I know, I don't look 65, right? I mean, I don't feel like it. It helps us be more intimate with you, and it engages your audience even more. So overall, you have great presence, natural gestures, good sense of humor. I love your voice. I think the opportunities for you is to work more on your staging, especially with your characters, and also understand more how stories can really help bring those to life. I loved your speech. Thank you so much, Mr. Contest Chair.
Contestant number 8, Jennifer Herrera. Jennifer Herrera, contestant number 8.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, what a phenomenal experience walking through life with AJ in the demonstration speech. Mr. Contest Chair, fellow, one of the features of tonight's speech was when AJ was able to bring us along with her through the vivid imagery. Her language was so descriptive, such as I was resplendent in my floor-length gown, and I could just see her walking across the yacht club lawn. I loved how she talked about each of the experiences at the yacht club, consulting project closing down, Zen Burger restaurant experience with the husband, deciding need to rethink this and reflect. All of the stages we could feel and journey with because of the vivid language. And the use of vivid language is so powerful because it's the same as our videos. It's a difference of standard video versus HD or Blu-ray. We got the Blu-ray tonight. Another important feature of this speech that was powerful was the structure. Having a structure that can carry us with the information and carry us with all the ups and downs of life is having structure that we can follow. And by moving across the stage, scene 1, scene 2, scene 3, we were able to follow easily. and we were able to engage and relive facets of our own lives as we heard her story. Where could we improve? Every speech can be improved. One of the areas that I think was already strong but could be stronger is in taking that vivid language and varying the language pitch and the volume a bit. Talking a little faster when it's happy times, talking a little slower when it's... Another way to couple that with your body language, such as was demonstrated with depression weighing her down, and she bent over, weighed me down, just like a burden on our back. More of that, all through the 3 scenes, more of that at the call to action for all of us would definitely inspire even more in this speech. At the end, the call to this speech could even end with kind of almost a superhero pose. Shoulders back, I'm ready for adulthood part 2. Mr. Contest Chair.
Contestant number 9, Evie Gliza Loveris. Evie Gliza Loveris, contestant number 9.
Thank you. Adulthood, the sequel, commentary, take 1, action. Fellow Toastmasters, guests, dignitaries, recent DTMs, and most importantly, AJ. Good evening, and thank you to you, AJ, for giving us a personal speech, an inspirational speech, and a motivational speech, all wrapped up in about 7 minutes. AJ started her speech in such an effective way, and I thought that AJ's use of the different scenes at the beginning and even the use of the stage was so great in illustrating her point. And I love that in the first part of her speech that it was so personal that I got to learn basically the first part of AJ's life within that opening. Secondly, it was inspirational in that she shared all of great quotes from her life and all the quotes that she learned. She also shared some information that I didn't know about the lady who climbed Mount Kilimanjaro, so that information I know now as well. And then finally, she was super motivational in that she left us with a call to action to motivate us all about what we want to be able to do in our lives as we go on through our adult, as I would say. Now, how do we take a great speech and make it even better? I have 3 tips, all of which are my humble opinion. The first one being vocal variety. This is a very challenging stage to work with, and I felt that using a little bit more vocal dynamics, especially at the part where AJ was making her point at the climax of her story and telling us what she wanted to leave behind, I thought that she could have used loudness and then softness in her voice to really drive that point home. Number 2, editing the story a little bit, in my opinion. I felt that the first half was heavier than the second half. So I would have liked to edit the first half of the story a little bit more so that it didn't feel like she was rushing towards the end of her speech. And then finally, this one is really minor. I thought that the microphone changing was a little bit distracting. Overall, great job. Thank you for sharing an inspirational, personal, and motivational speech. If you could if she would be willing to work on her vocal variety, the technical difficulties, and then also editing, I think AJ would have herself a competition speech next time. And cut. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Michael's going to help. All right, for evaluation. Okay. For third place, drum roll. Jovita Robertson.
Can I read them backwards? Yes, I read them backwards. All right.
Right. Okay.
I agree.
Okay. Second place, drum roll. Otstot. Okay, Tom, let's do it. You can't get back in there. Our 2019 first place winner, Bob Myers.